What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars. Today I'm going to be talking about the original 1990 version of The Witches. I'm doing this, of course, to prepare myself to watch and review the remake tomorrow. I know I'm a tad bit late on this film, but again, I was busy last month. Anyways, this is obviously not my first time watching the movie, but it is my first time reviewing it. Sadly, I can't really say that I grew up watching this movie. I've seen it probably once when I was a kid, but my mom, being the Christian lady that she was always against anything regarding witches. Even if it was rated PG and meant to be watched with families with kids. I had a sheltered childhood, what can I say? That being said, I do remember reading this book and seeing this movie, and there are certain things about watching the film again after so many years that stood out to me as instantly nostalgic and unforgettable, and it's kind of an example of a Lulu of witches in general. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, Lulu, an outstanding example of a particular type of person or thing. The Witches focuses on a young boy and his grandmother as they discuss what witches are like in real life, a subject that fascinates the boy until he runs into a swarm of witches in his hotel, all of which are plotting to wipe out every child in the country by transforming them into mice. The question comes down to what can the boy actually do about this witch problem when he himself eventually gets turned into a mouse. This is such a classic film when you watch it, and I think a huge reason for that is because it's all based on a book that was written by Roald Dahl. He often had a way about his storytelling that made either his readers or film audiences feel an incredible amount of magic and wonder while they got sucked into the story. That's been true for, I feel like, every single one of his stories, whether it be Willy Wonka, Matilda, James and the Giant Peach, the BFG, and so many others. He was just so good at what he did, and that magic is not lost in The Witches. There's got to be a million movies out there focusing on witches, but I feel like this is actually one of the best and most original, solely based on how the witches are described. I mean, the whole bald thing with itchy scalps, the flat-edged toes, the purple hue to the eyes, the way they can smell children. It's all based on what the book said, obviously, but even so, those descriptors are so unique. It's one of the main things that I've always respected about this story. As for how the movie itself is made, well, I mean, you can definitely praise a lot of the practical effects work that was put in the film. That is true especially for the makeup and costume of the witches, and animatronic work on the mice, which the editor was able to kind of weave together shots of real mice with the animatronic mice really nicely. I don't always love animatronics, but when you compare that to bad CGI, the animatronic work will always come out on top because at the end of the day, you can still make the argument that those animals were physically there in this movie, whether or not they looked real. You can't really make the same argument about bad CGI, and that's one of my biggest worries about the remake. But my main issue with this movie is that it's too much of an adaptation, meaning you feel the book when you watch it more than you feel a movie. It just doesn't flow together as well as any other movie would. This happens, then this happens, and then this happens, and then that happens. But there's not many transitioning scenes that get these characters from point A to point B to point C, nor is there any exposition scenes explaining why a majority of these things are happening. For instance, the boy and his grandmother wind up in this hotel, but there really isn't much explanation at all as to how or why they wound up at this particular hotel where these particular witches just so happen to be having a get-together. There's no explanation as to why the witches hate children or want them all dead. It's pretty shallow in that respect. They're just evil for evil's sake. And I understand and respect that it's a kids' movie and they don't always need those types of answers, but nowadays I actually come to expect something, even if it's something small. So I'm crossing my fingers for some more explanations in the remake. We'll see though. In general, I can't say that I love witch movies, but because this film specifically feels classic and has that Roald Dahl spirit, I've got to say is easily one of my favorite witch movies in general. It's also on Netflix, so you can definitely check it out if you haven't seen it yet, but let's go ahead and break down my final score for a second. Now, from a technical, unbiased perspective, I have to say that I definitely respect the practical effects work that was done in this movie. It's all very, very good. Even if the animatronic stuff is noticeably fake, it's nostalgic, which saves a lot of what could be perceived as bad moments. That score is 80%. Likewise, my bias score agrees with that and is also 80% because it brought me back to my own childhood, and I was reminded of that magic and wonder that I associate with Roald Dahl. Meaning when you average these two scores together, we obviously come to the final rating of 80%, 80 out of 100 possible stars, or a B- letter grade. I liked it. I haven't heard the best things about the remake, but that's almost always the case. People hate remakes because they have too many expectations due to the original, or due to the book that it melts their brain to imagine anybody else approaching the same story. I'm usually really excited to see remakes because I can sit here and enjoy both for different reasons. There's every chance in the world that I can sit here and enjoy the book for one reason, enjoy the 1990 film for another reason, and enjoy the 2020 remake for a third reason. I almost never crap on one because it's not like the other. If I wanted it to be exactly like the other, I'd just watch the other or read the book. I actually want them to make changes. As long as the movie works within its own set of rules, I'm game. But we'll find out soon if I'll take to the remake. Guys, let me know your thoughts on the original Witches film in the comments section down below. Is this film every bit as classic to you as I feel like it is to me? As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this review, because there's always more like it coming out each and every single day. Hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when I come out with my review for the remake of The Witches. And until then, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us.